The diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge broke through the clouds of New Terra with barely a whisper. Ambassador Vex Thor stood at the observation window, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. The human colony world spread beneath them like a green and blue jewel. He had visited 47 worlds in his career, but this one made him nervous in ways he could not quite explain. "Ambassador, the human delegation is ready to receive us," his aide announced from across the bridge. Vex Thor nodded slowly. His people had been spacefaring for 3,000 years. Humans had joined the Galactic Council barely 2 decades ago. Yet something about these newcomers unsettled the older races. They came from Earth, a world so hostile that most species would classify it as uninhabitable. The gravity alone would crush a Peltharian. The diseases would kill a Xiphon in hours. And yet humans thrived there, even called it beautiful. Security Chief Krill approached the ambassador, his compound eyes flickering with concern. "Sir, I must protest once more. We have not completed a full planetary scan. There could be threats we haven't identified. The humans have assured us of their hospitality," Vex Thor replied, though he understood Krill's worry. The insectoid officer took his duties seriously, perhaps too seriously at times. "That is precisely what concerns me." Krill clicked his mandibles together in frustration. "They do not seem to understand what constitutes a threat." Their report listed several Earth predators on this colony. Creatures they call dogs and cats. My research shows these animals are descended from pack hunters and ambush predators. Vex's Thor had read the same reports. He had seen the images of humans living alongside these creatures, even keeping them inside their homes. It was disturbing behavior. But the Council had decided to overlook such eccentricities. Humans were useful allies, strong and surprisingly clever. Their odd relationship with dangerous animals was simply another quirk to tolerate. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad near the main settlement. As the door opened, Vex Thor got his first breath of New Terra air. It was rich with oxygen, almost too rich. His lungs worked harder than usual. Another reminder that this was a death world by any reasonable standard. Captain Lisa Bennett waited at the bottom of the ramp. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and black hair pulled back in a strict military style. She smiled as the delegation descended, showing her teeth. Vex Thor suppressed a shudder. He knew it was a friendly gesture for humans, but to his people, baring teeth meant aggression. "Ambassador Vex Thor, welcome to New Terra." Captain Bennett extended her hand. Vex Thor carefully took it, mindful of his claws. Humans had peculiarly delicate skin. "Thank you, Captain. We are honored by your invitation. Let me introduce Dr. Nathan Purrs, our xenobiologist and cultural liaison." She gestured to a man standing beside her. He was younger than the captain, with light brown hair and glasses that he did not actually need. Vex Thor knew humans sometimes wore such things for aesthetic reasons. Another oddity. Dr. Purrs shook hands with each member of the delegation. "We're excited to show you our agricultural facilities. New Terra has become one of our most productive colony worlds." As they walked toward the settlement, Vex Thor observed everything carefully. Human children played in an open area nearby. Small ones, barely knee-high to an adult. One child in particular caught his attention, a little girl with blonde hair tied in 2 tails. She was laughing as she chased something small and furry. "That's my daughter, Emma," Dr. Purrs said, noticing the ambassador's gaze. "She's 7 years old." The furry creature Emma chased turned out to be one of those cat animals. It leaped onto a bench, and the child followed, completely fearless. The cat was easily a quarter of her size, with sharp claws visible even from a distance. Krill made a concerned clicking sound. "Is that creature not dangerous?" the security chief asked. Dr. Purrs laughed. "Mittens? No, she's harmless. Well, she might scratch if Emma pulls her tail. But nothing serious." Nothing serious. Vex's Thor stored that phrase away for future analysis. To humans, apparently, minor lacerations from a predator's claws were considered trivial. They continued the tour through the settlement. The humans had built efficiently, using local materials where possible. But what struck Vex Thor most was how they had integrated the local ecosystem rather than replacing it. Trees from Earth grew alongside native New Terra plants. Birds from both worlds shared the sky. "We believe in working with nature, not against it," Captain Bennett explained. "Sure, it's more challenging, but the results are worth it." The agricultural fields stretched for kilometers. Humans worked alongside machines, tending crops that fed not just this colony, but provided exports to 3 neighboring systems. And everywhere, Vex's Thor saw those Earth animals. Dogs ran beside human workers. Cats lounged in the sun near storage buildings. Even larger creatures grazed in distant fields. Animals the humans called horses and cows. "Remarkable," Vex Thor admitted. "Your efficiency exceeds our projections." "We had good teachers," Dr. Purrs said diplomatically. "The Peltharians shared their agricultural techniques with us. We just adapted them to our style." They were examining a new irrigation system when the alert came through. Captain Bennett's communicator chirped urgently. Her expression changed instantly from friendly to serious. "Bennett here." The voice on the other end was tense, speaking quickly. Vex Thor's translator picked up the words, but his brain refused to process them at first. "Captain, perimeter sensors have detected a large organism approaching from the western mountains. Initial scans match the profile for a Draconis mortalis." 2. The entire delegation froze. Even the humans looked shocked. Krill's translator began chattering frantically, searching for information on the species. Vex Thor did not need a translator. He knew that name. Every spacefaring species knew that name. "Are you certain?" Captain Bennett's voice was steady, but her hand had moved to her sidearm. "Confirmed, Captain. It's still 30 kilometers out, but heading directly toward the settlement. Estimated arrival in 2 hours." Dr. Purrs had gone pale. "How is that possible? There are no Draconis on New Terra. We surveyed this planet for 3 years before establishing the colony." "Apparently we missed one," Captain Bennett said grimly. "Or it just arrived." Krill was already moving, shouting orders to the alien security forces. "Immediate evacuation. All personnel to the ships. We must leave this planet now." "Wait." Captain Bennett held up a hand. "We have 4,000 colonists here. We can't just abandon them. You do not understand." Vex Thor's voice was hollow. "The Draconis mortalis is the apex predator of the scorched reaches. It has been responsible for the extinction of 6 species and the abandonment of 12 colony worlds. My own people lost an entire settlement to one of these creatures 300 years ago. There is no defense. There is no negotiation. There is only death." Captain Bennett looked at Dr. Purrs. Something passed between them. Some unspoken communication. Then she nodded. "We'll evacuate non-essential personnel. But I'm not abandoning this colony without at least trying to understand the situation." "You cannot reason with a Draconis," Vex Thor said urgently. "It is not malicious. It is simply lethal. Its body temperature alone can ignite most organic materials. Its strength can tear through reinforced steel, and it fears nothing because nothing in the known galaxy can harm it." "Maybe nothing has tried the right approach," Dr. Purrs said quietly. Krill made a sound that Vex Thor's translator could not process. It was probably something very rude. As alarms began to sound across the settlement, Vex Thor watched the humans organize their response. They were not panicking. They were not fleeing. They were preparing, studying, analyzing. It was either the bravest or most foolish thing he had ever witnessed. Far to the west, beyond the mountains, something ancient and terrible had awakened, and it was coming their way. Emma Pierce heard the alarms and looked up from her coloring book. Her father was talking urgently with other adults. Something about a big lizard. Emma loved lizards. She pressed her face against the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of it. She wondered if it would want to be friends. The settlement's perimeter had become a fortress in less than an hour. Krill had deployed every defensive measure at his disposal. Energy barriers hummed with power. Weapons platforms tracked the western approach. His security forces had taken position behind reinforced barriers, their weapons charged and ready. It would not be enough. Krill knew this with absolute certainty. He had studied the records of every encounter with a Draconis Mortalis. 17 civilizations had tried to fight them. 17 civilizations had failed. The best outcome had been a strategic retreat with 70% casualties. The worst had been complete annihilation. Status report. Captain Bennett stood at the command center, studying multiple screens showing different sensor readings. The creature is now 15 kilometers away, Krill reported. It has maintained a steady pace. No deviation from its current trajectory. It will reach the settlement perimeter in approximately 1 hour. Dr. Purrs was working at a nearby console, comparing the sensor data against the known database entries. The profile matches a mature adult. Based on heat signatures, I estimate it's running at about 4,000 degrees internal temperature. That's actually hotter than most recorded specimens. Wonderful news. Krill's translator added a sarcastic tone that his species did not naturally possess. Vex Thor paced near the windows, his tail swishing with agitation. He had sent 3 emergency transmissions to the Galactic Council. All had received the same response. Evacuate immediately. Do not engage. Preserve all possible data for future analysis. Standard protocol when facing a Draconis. But the humans were not following standard protocol. They had evacuated the children and non-essential personnel to the orbital station. Yes. But Captain Bennett had kept nearly 200 colonists on the ground. Scientists, security forces, and volunteers who refused to leave their homes. I need you to understand something, Vex Thor said, turning to face the captain. My people are not cowards. We have faced wars, plagues, stellar catastrophes. But the Draconis Mortalis is different. It is not a threat that can be overcome with courage or technology. It simply exists, and where it exists, other life cannot. I appreciate your concern, Ambassador, Captain Bennett replied without looking away from her screens. But humanity has dealt with apex predators before. We've learned to coexist with them. You have dealt with Earth predators, Vex Thor stressed the word. The Draconis is beyond your experience, Doctor. Purrs looked up from his console. Actually, Earth had some comparable species, extinct now, but the fossil record shows creatures of similar size and predatory capability. Tyrannosaurus rex, for example, or Spinosaurus. Our ancestors survived alongside megafauna that would terrify most galactic species. Krill's mandibles clicked rapidly. Your ancestors survived by hiding in caves and trees. Is that your strategy now? Our ancestors survived by learning, Dr. Purrs corrected. By observing, understanding, and adapting. Eventually, we didn't need to hide anymore. A new alarm cut through the conversation. One of the observation posts reported visual contact. Everyone turned to the main screen as the image feed came through. The Draconis Mortalis was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. It stood nearly 30 meters from snout to tail, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. Its scales were black as deep space, but they shimmered with an inner light, like cooling lava beneath a thin crust. Each step left scorched earth behind it, but what caught everyone's attention were its eyes. They glowed like molten gold, bright enough to see even at this distance. Ancient eyes. Intelligent eyes. By the stars, Vex Thor whispered. The dragon stopped at exactly 5 kilometers from the settlement. It raised its massive head, those golden eyes scanning the human structures. Then, slowly and deliberately, it lowered itself to the ground. It did not crouch aggressively. It simply sat, like a cat settling down to watch birds. What is it doing? Captain Bennett leaned closer to the screen. Dr. Purrs was typing rapidly, pulling up behavioral data. According to the records, Draconis Mortalis don't exhibit waiting behavior. They're described as constantly mobile, always hunting or patrolling territory. Maybe it's planning its attack, Krill suggested darkly. Or maybe it's curious, Dr. Purrs countered. The dragon remained motionless for 10 minutes. Its tail curled around its body. Steam rose from its scales as the afternoon sun beat down on it. The temperature at its location had risen by 15 degrees according to the sensors. Then it did something unprecedented. It yawned. The action was captured in perfect detail on the screen. The dragon's jaws opened wide, revealing rows of teeth designed to tear through starship hulls. Its tongue was bright orange, glowing with internal heat, and then it closed its mouth and appeared to settle into a more comfortable position. "That is not hunting behavior," Dr. Purrs said with growing excitement. "That's resting behavior. It's waiting for something. Waiting for us to make a mistake so it can attack," Krill insisted. "If it wanted to attack, it would have done so already," Captain Bennett observed. "It could probably level this entire settlement in minutes. Instead, it's sitting there like it's expecting an invitation." Vexthor felt his world tilting. 300 years of certainty, of knowing the Draconis were mindless killing machines. And here was one behaving like a rational being. "We should attempt communication," Dr. Purrs said suddenly. Every alien in the room turned to stare at him in horror. "Absolutely not." Krill's translator provided unusual emphasis. "Every species that has attempted communication with a Draconis has been destroyed. The Peltharians tried. The Xiphons tried. Even the Krell Dominion, with all their military might, tried. All failed. Maybe they approached it wrong," Dr. Purrs argued. "They came with weapons and shields and fear. The dragon probably sensed that fear and responded accordingly." "What do you suggest?" Captain Bennett asked. "We walk out there with a welcome sign?" "Actually." Dr. Purrs hesitated. "Something like that. Yes. We approach it calmly, without weapons, showing that we're not a threat." "We are not a threat," Vexthor said flatly. "Nothing in this settlement is a threat to that creature. It knows this. Everyone knows this. But does it know we're not trying to be a threat, Doctor?" Purrs pressed. "Think about it from the dragon's perspective. Every time it encounters a new species, they immediately attack or run away screaming. It's never been given the chance to be anything other than a monster." The idea was insane. It violated every survival instinct Vexthor possessed. And yet, as he looked at the dragon sitting peacefully in the distance, he could not deny there was something different about this encounter. A new commotion drew their attention. Emma Purrs had been sitting quietly in the corner of the command center, coloring pictures while her father worked. But children have a limited tolerance for sitting still. And Emma had apparently reached hers. "I need to use the bathroom," she announced, standing up. "Down the hall, second door on the left," her father said absently, still focused on the dragon data. Emma nodded and walked out. No one paid much attention. They were all too focused on the screens showing the dragon. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. "Has anyone seen Emma?" Dr. Purrs asked suddenly, looking around the command center. His question triggered immediate action. Security personnel scattered to search the building. Captain Bennett pulled up the internal camera feeds. Krill coordinated the search efforts with military precision. They found the bathroom empty. The cameras showed Emma leaving the command center but then losing her in the corridors. The settlement was not large, but there were dozens of rooms and passages where a small child could wander. "She probably just got curious and went exploring," Captain Bennett said, trying to sound reassuring. "We'll find her." But as the minutes ticked by without success, Dr. Purrs's worry grew into panic. They checked every room, every storage area, every possible hiding spot. Emma was nowhere inside the building. Then someone checked the external cameras. "Sir," a security officer called out, his voice strangled. "You need to see this." The main screen switched to an external camera view. It showed the open ground between the settlement and the dragon. And walking across that ground, small and alone, and completely unconcerned, was Emma Purrs. She was heading straight toward the Draconis Mortalis. In her arms, she carried her favorite stuffed toy, a small plush dragon her father had given her for her birthday. She was skipping, the way children do when they're happy and excited. Dr. Purrs made a sound that was not quite a scream. He bolted for the door, but Captain Bennett grabbed him. "Wait," she hissed urgently. "If you run out there, you might startle it." "That's my daughter," Nathan's voice broke. "I know. But right now, We need to stay calm. For her sake. On the screen, Emma continued her innocent approach. The dragon's massive head lifted. Those golden eyes focusing on the tiny human child crossing the scorched earth. Its nostrils flared, breathing in her scent. Every being in the command center held their breath. They were watching either a miracle or a tragedy unfold. And none of them could tell which. The dragon did not move. It simply watched as Emma got closer and closer. And somewhere in the depths of its ancient mind, the most feared predator in the galaxy began to think thoughts it had never thought before. This small creature was not afraid. This small creature was not attacking. This small creature was approaching it the way one might approach a friend. The dragon tilted its head, confused but intrigued. And it waited to see what would happen next. Emma Purrs had seen the big lizard through the window and decided it looked lonely. She knew about being lonely. When her family first moved to New Terra, she had been the only child her age in the settlement for 2 whole months. It had been boring and sad until other families arrived. The big lizard was sitting all by itself outside the settlement. Nobody was going to say hello to it. That seemed rude. So Emma decided she would go say hello herself. She grabbed her stuffed dragon, Mr. Scales, because she thought the big lizard might like to meet someone who looked similar. Then she found a side door that nobody was guarding because everyone was too busy looking at screens and talking in worried voices. The walk across the field was longer than Emma expected. The ground was warm under her shoes, getting warmer the closer she got to the big lizard. She could feel heat coming off it like standing near a campfire. But Emma liked campfires, so that was okay. In the command center, Dr. Purrs struggled against Captain Bennett's grip. His heart was breaking with every step his daughter took. He could see disaster approaching and was powerless to stop it. "Let me go," he pleaded. "Please, if you run out there, the dragon might see you as a threat." Captain Bennett's voice was tight with her own fear. "Right now, it's just watching her. Let's not give it a reason to do anything else." Krill had both his weapons charged and targeted on the dragon. "If it makes one aggressive move, I will fire. And if you fire, you'll definitely make it angry," Dr. Purrs shot back. "Your weapons won't kill it. They'll just hurt it enough to make it attack." Vex Thor watched the screen with the fascination of someone witnessing history unfold. This moment would be recorded, studied, analyzed, for generations. A human child approaching the galaxy's ultimate predator. Either this would end in tragedy that proved everything they knew about Draconis Mortalis, or something unprecedented would occur. Emma was now close enough to see details. The dragon's scales were beautiful up close, each one edged with a soft glow like embers in a fireplace. Its eyes were huge, bigger than Emma's whole head, and they watched her with an expression she could not quite read. "Hello," Emma called out in her high, clear voice. "My name is Emma. What's your name?" The dragon's eyes widened slightly. Its head tilted to one side. The gesture remarkably similar to what Mittens did when Emma talked to her cat. "You're really big?" Emma continued, walking closer. "I bet you can see really far when you stand up. Are you a boy dragon or a girl dragon? It's okay if you don't want to tell me. Sometimes people ask questions that are too personal." Behind her, in the command center, several aliens were trembling so hard they could not stand. One of Krill's security officers had fainted. Dr. Purrs was crying silently, still held in place by Captain Bennett's iron grip. Emma stopped about 5 meters from the dragon's head. This close, the heat was intense. Sweat beaded on her forehead. But she smiled up at the massive creature without fear. "I brought someone to meet you," she held up Mr. Scales. "This is my dragon. His name is Mr. Scales. He's not as big as you, but he's very nice. Do you want to be friends?" The dragon lowered its head slowly, bringing those enormous golden eyes level with Emma. Up close, she could see her own reflection in them. The dragon's breath washed over her, hot and smelling like stone and fire. Its nostrils flared, breathing in her scent. Emma noticed something. The dragon's eyes were sad. She had seen that expression before, in the stray dogs that sometimes wandered near the settlement before someone adopted them. They were lonely eyes. "You don't have any friends, do you?" Emma asked softly. That's okay. I'll be your friend. She stepped forward, standing on her tiptoes, and did something that would change galactic history forever. She kissed the dragon right between its eyes, where its scales met in a pattern that reminded her of a star. The dragon's reaction was immediate and completely unexpected. It made a sound that started deep in its chest and rumbled through the ground. The sensors in the command center went crazy trying to classify the noise. It took several seconds before Dr. Purrs realized what he was hearing. The Draconis mortalis was purring. The sound was deeper than any cat's purr, more felt than heard. It vibrated through the air and earth. The dragon's eyes closed halfway, and it leaned very gently into Emma's touch as she patted its nose. "You're warm," Emma giggled. "Like a big heating pad. My mom uses one when her back hurts." The dragon's massive mouth curved upward at the corners. It was smiling. The deadliest predator in the galaxy was smiling at a 7-year-old girl. "Can I give you a name?" Emma asked. "You should have a name. How about Ember? You're all glowy like an ember in a fire. Do you like that name?" The dragon's purr grew louder, seeming to indicate approval. It very carefully, with movements of incredible precision for something so large, lowered itself completely to the ground. Its massive body stretched out, wings folding against its sides. The position made it less intimidating, more approachable. Emma clapped her hands in delight. "You're nice. I knew you would be nice. Everyone was scared of you. But I could tell you, just wanted someone to talk to." She walked closer and leaned against the dragon's shoulder. The heat was like a warm bath. Ember's scales were smooth and hard but not sharp. The dragon's wing shifted slightly, creating a barrier between Emma and the wind. In the command center, chaos had erupted. "This is impossible," Krill kept repeating. "Impossible. My translator must be malfunctioning. That sound cannot be what I think it is." "It's purring," Dr. Purrs whispered, his voice full of wonder and relief. "The dragon is purring." Vex Thor's hands shook as he recorded every moment. His 300 years of diplomatic experience had not prepared him for this. Nothing could have prepared him for this. "I need to get to my daughter," Dr. Purrs said. And this time Captain Bennett did not stop him. He walked out of the command center on legs that felt like water. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to grab Emma and flee, but he forced himself to move slowly, calmly, keeping his hands visible and his body language relaxed. Emma saw him coming and waved enthusiastically. "Daddy, look! I made a new friend. His name is Ember." The dragon watched Dr. Purrs approach. Its purring stopped. Those golden eyes focused on him with laser intensity. Nathan's mouth went dry. He was very aware that one swipe from those claws could cut him in half. "That's wonderful. Sweetheart." He managed to keep his voice steady. "But you need to ask permission before leaving the settlement." "You scared me. I'm sorry, Daddy, but Ember looked so lonely. I had to come say hello." Dr. Purrs reached his daughter. And the dragon had not moved aggressively. Up close, the creature was even more impressive. Its scales held patterns of heat that flowed like liquid metal. Its claws were each longer than Nathan's forearm. The teeth visible in its slightly open mouth could tear through reinforced steel, and yet, as Emma leaned against it, the dragon was being incredibly gentle. It tracked Dr. Purrs with its eyes but made no threatening gestures. Nathan knelt beside his daughter. "Emma, this is very important. Is Ember being nice to you?" "Yes. He's the nicest dragon ever. I think he was just sad. Because nobody wanted to be his friend before." The dragon made a soft sound. Somewhere between a sigh and a rumble. Then, slowly and deliberately, it extended one wing slightly, creating more shade over both Emma and her father. It was a protective gesture. The dragon was protecting them from the sun. Dr. Purrs felt tears streaming down his face. He was a scientist. He dealt in facts and evidence. But right now, he was witnessing something that science had said was impossible. The Draconis mortalis, the terror of the galaxy, was showing affection to a human child. "Can we keep him?" Emma asked hopefully. "Please?" I promise I'll take care of him. I'll feed him, and everything." Despite everything, Nathan laughed. It was a slightly hysterical sound, but it was genuine. "I think Ember is too big to keep as a pet, sweetheart. But maybe he can be our friend and visit sometimes." The dragon's purr resumed at that, a satisfied sound that rumbled through the earth. Back in the command center, Captain Bennett was dealing with a flood of communications from the Galactic Council. Every species with an embassy was demanding explanations. Video of Emma's kiss was already spreading across the galactic network. "Tell them," Captain Bennett said calmly, "that humanity has just demonstrated a new approach to xenobiological contact, and they're welcome to learn from our methods." Vex Thor stood beside her, still watching the screen. Dr. Purrs was now sitting with his daughter against the dragon's side, both of them dwarfed by the massive creature. Ember had wrapped his tail partially around them, a gesture of acceptance and protection. "You humans," Vex Thor said softly, "are either the bravest or most insane species I have ever encountered." "Maybe a little of both," Captain Bennett replied with a small smile. "But it works for us." On the screen, Emma was telling Ember a story about her cat, Mittens. The dragon listened, occasionally making small sounds that might have been questions. Its golden eyes were soft, content, no longer sad, and in that moment, the galaxy learned that monsters are sometimes just lonely creatures, waiting for someone brave enough to offer friendship. All it took was a child's kiss and a pure heart to teach an ancient predator what love felt like. The emergency session of the Galactic Council delegation had been going for 3 hours. Vex Thor had watched the same footage at least 20 times. Each viewing made it no less incredible. A human child kissing a Draconis mortalis. The dragon purring. The impossible made real. "There must be some explanation," Krill insisted for the 15th time. "Perhaps this dragon is sick. Or injured. Something must be wrong with it to explain this behavior." Dr. Purrs shook his head. He had barely slept since the encounter, spending every waking moment analyzing data. "All our scans show Ember is in perfect health. Actually, better than perfect. His biology is functioning at peak efficiency. He's not sick or damaged. He's exactly what a healthy Draconis should be." "Then the records are wrong." Krill clicked his mandibles in frustration. "Centuries of observations by dozens of species, all incorrect." "Not incorrect, Doctor," Purrs replied carefully. "Just incomplete. Every previous encounter with a Draconis mortalis involved fear and aggression from the other species. The dragons responded to that fear with their own aggression. But Emma didn't approach with fear. She approached with affection." Vex Thor leaned back in his chair, his tail coiling around its base. "You are suggesting that the galaxy's most feared predator has been acting defensively all this time? That we created the monster we feared?" "In a way, yes, Doctor." Purrs pulled up a new set of data on the main screen. "Look at this. I've been comparing Ember's behavior patterns with Earth animals that humans have domesticated. Dogs, cats, horses, even some reptiles. There are striking similarities in how they respond to friendly contact. But those are Earth animals," one of the other delegates objected. "Species that evolved alongside humans." "Actually, no, Doctor," Purrs corrected. "Humans domesticated these species over thousands of years. They weren't naturally friendly. Wolves were dangerous predators. Wild cats were solitary hunters. Horses were prey animals that could kill with a single kick. But humans learned to approach them differently." Captain Bennett joined the discussion, bringing fresh cups of coffee for the humans and appropriate beverages for the aliens. "Dr. Purrs is right. Human history is full of examples where we took dangerous species and formed bonds with them. We didn't do it through force or technology. We did it through patience, respect, and genuine care." "But a Draconis is not a dog," Krill protested. "No," Captain Bennett agreed. "It's much more intelligent. That might actually make it easier, not harder." Outside the conference room, Emma was having her own meeting with Ember. "Doctor, Purrs had established some basic safety protocols. No approaching without adult supervision, stay clear of the dragon's mouth when it was eating, and always let Ember know she was coming before getting close." Emma had agreed to all the rules without complaint. She sat cross-legged in the grass while Ember stretched out beside her. The dragon had created a comfortable spot by partially melting the ground with his body heat. Forming a smooth, warm surface, Emma was reading aloud from her favorite book, a story about a girl who found a magic garden. Ember listened with what appeared to be genuine interest. His massive head rested on his front claws, positioned so he could watch Emma with one golden eye. Occasionally he made small, rumbling sounds that Emma had learned meant he was content. And then the garden grew so beautiful that everyone came to see it. Emma read, showing Ember the pictures. "Do you like gardens? Maybe we could plant one for you." "What kind of flowers do you think dragons like?" Ember's response was a soft purr and a gentle puff of warm air that ruffled Emma's hair. She giggled and patted his nose. A security camera captured every moment. In the command center, dozens of xenobiologists from across the galaxy watched via live feed. The implications were staggering. If humans could befriend a Draconis mortalis, what other impossible contacts might become possible? Dr. Purrs returned to the conference room with new findings. "I've been reviewing all recorded Draconis encounters. In every case, the first contact involved either military ships with active weapons or research vessels projecting shield barriers. The dragons responded to perceived threats. Because they are predators," Krill insisted. "Because they are intelligent beings responding to aggression with defensive behavior," Dr. Purrs countered. "Think about it. If someone approached you with weapons drawn, would you not defend yourself?" Vexthor considered this carefully. His species had fought wars in their early history. They understood defensive aggression very well. "You believe the Draconis have been defending themselves all along?" "I think they've been alone," Dr. Purrs said softly. "Look at the stellar maps. Draconis sightings are always in isolated systems, far from major civilizations. They're not invading our space. We're encroaching on theirs. And when we arrive with weapons and fear, they respond accordingly." Captain Bennett added. Emma didn't bring weapons or fear. She brought kindness and a stuffed toy. She showed Ember that not all beings in the galaxy want to hurt him. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 300 years of fear and violence, possibly based on mutual misunderstanding. Civilizations lost. Colonies abandoned. All because no one had tried approaching with an open heart instead of raised shields. "This changes everything," Vexthor said finally. "The Council must be informed. Protocols must be rewritten. If the Draconis are not mindless predators but intelligent beings capable of social bonds, they deserve diplomatic status. More than that," Dr. Purrs opened another file. "I'd like permission to continue studying Ember. With proper interaction, we might learn their language, understand their culture. They might have knowledge we've never imagined." Krill was still skeptical but could not deny the evidence. "What if other Draconis are not like this one? What if Ember is unique?" As if in answer to his question, an alert chimed. Captain Bennett checked her communicator, and her eyes widened. "We have reports coming in from 3 other human colonies. Draconis mortalis have appeared near settlements. In each case, they're exhibiting the same behavior as Ember, sitting at a distance, waiting, watching. No aggression. They know," Dr. Purrs breathed. "Somehow they know that one of their kind made contact successfully. They're trying to replicate it." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Galactic Council authorized immediate research initiatives. Human diplomats were dispatched to the other colonies where dragons had appeared, and most importantly, protocols were established for peaceful contact with Draconis mortalis. The key principles were simple and based entirely on Emma's approach. No weapons, no aggressive posturing, and genuine, friendly intent. Several human children volunteered to serve as initial contact specialists, their natural fearlessness and openness making them ideal ambassadors. Dr. Purrs developed a contact procedure. Approach slowly. Speak in calm tones. Offer no threats. And most crucially, show genuine affection. It was the opposite of every first contact protocol the galaxy had ever used. And it worked. Within a week, humans had made peaceful contact with 5 more Draconis. Each dragon responded similarly to Ember, showing intelligence, curiosity, and a desperate hunger for social connection. They were not monsters. They had never been monsters. They were simply lonely, powerful beings that no one had ever tried to understand. Emma became something of a celebrity, though she did not fully understand why. To her, she had just made a friend. That Ember happened to be a dragon did not seem particularly special to a 7-year-old mind. She spent several hours each day with Ember, teaching him games, reading him stories, and introducing him to other aspects of human culture. Ember, in turn, began teaching her things. He could not speak, but he communicated through gestures, sounds, and sometimes by using his claw to draw in the dirt. Dr. Purrs documented everything, slowly building a database of dragon communication. It turned out Draconis had their own form of language, a complex combination of body language, heat signatures, and low-frequency sounds that human technology could barely detect. One evening, as the sun set over New Terra, Emma sat against Ember's side while he hummed a deep, melodic sound. It was dragon music, Dr. Purrs realized, a song that Ember had not sung in who knows how long because there had been no one to sing it for. "Daddy," Emma asked, "why was everyone so scared of Ember before?" Dr. Purrs considered how to answer. He wanted to be honest, but age-appropriate. Sometimes, people are afraid of things they don't understand. Ember is very big and very powerful. That made people think he was dangerous. But he's not dangerous, he's nice. He can be nice and still be powerful, Dr. Purrs explained. The important thing is that we gave him a chance to show us his nice side. A lot of people didn't do that before. Emma thought about this for a moment. That's sad. Ember must have been lonely for a really long time. Dr. Purrs hugged his daughter. Yes, he was. But he's not lonely anymore, thanks to you. Ember's purr deepened, and his wing moved to shelter both humans from the evening breeze. In the fading light, his scales glowed softly, creating a warm, safe space. Back in the command center, Captain Bennett reviewed reports from across human space. The news was spreading fast. Humans could befriend dragons. More importantly, humans had shown the galaxy that approaching the unknown with love instead of fear could change everything. The Galactic Council was convening an emergency session. Vex Thor would present the findings, recommend the Draconis be granted full diplomatic status, and propose that human contact specialists be assigned to other dangerous first contact situations. It was the beginning of a new era. And it had all started with a 7-year-old girl who saw a lonely creature and decided to offer it friendship. Tomorrow, Emma would teach Ember how to play fetch. The galaxy would watch, learn, and slowly begin to understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is approach a monster with an open heart, because maybe, just maybe, there are no monsters, only beings waiting for someone to see them as friends. 3 weeks after Emma's kiss changed the galaxy, New Terra had become the most famous human colony in known space. Every day brought new arrivals. Scientists, diplomats, journalists, and curious beings from 100 different species, all wanting to witness the impossible friendship between a human child and the Draconis Mortalis. Emma found the attention overwhelming at times. She was used to being just another kid in the settlement. Now, everywhere she went with Ember, cameras followed. Reporters asked her questions she did not always understand. Adults treated her like she had done something extraordinary when, from her perspective, she had simply been kind to someone who needed a friend. "Do you understand why they're all here?" Dr. Purrs asked his daughter one morning, as they prepared for another day with Ember. Emma shrugged, adjusting her backpack full of books and toys. "They want to see Ember. He's really cool. They want to see you with Ember," her father corrected gently. "What you did, sweetheart, was very special. You taught the whole galaxy something important. That dragons are nice? That maybe the things we fear aren't always as scary as we think. That sometimes being brave means being kind instead of being strong." Emma considered this as they walked toward Ember's preferred resting spot near the agricultural fields. The dragon had carved out a comfortable area for himself. a warm depression in the earth where he could watch the settlement's daily activities. He seemed fascinated by human routines. The farmers tending crops, children playing in the recreation areas, ships coming and going from the landing pad. Ember's head lifted when he spotted Emma approaching. His golden eyes brightened, and the deep purr started before she even reached him. It was a sound that had become familiar and comforting to everyone in the settlement. The purr of a content dragon had become their daily soundtrack. "Good morning, Ember," Emma greeted him cheerfully, and the dragon lowered his massive head so she could pat his nose. It was their morning ritual. Dr. Purrs set up his monitoring equipment while Emma settled in with her schoolwork. The council had requested detailed behavioral observations, and Nathan was happy to provide them. Each day brought new insights into dragon intelligence and social needs. Today's discovery came when Emma pulled out her math homework. She was struggling with multiplication tables, counting on her fingers and making frustrated sounds. Ember watched with interest, then did something remarkable. He extended one claw and carefully drew numbers in the soft earth beside them. Not random scratches, actual numbers. And they were correct. Dr. Purrs nearly dropped his coffee. "Emma, can you ask Ember to do another one?" Emma showed the dragon her next problem. Ember studied it for a moment, then drew the answer in the dirt. Correct again. "He understands mathematics," Dr. Purrs whispered into his recorder. "Advanced mathematics. This isn't mimicry. He's actually solving the problems." Word of Ember's mathematical abilities spread quickly. Within hours, xenobiologists were revising every assumption about Draconis intelligence. They were not just capable of social bonds. They possessed cognitive abilities that might equal or exceed most spacefaring species. The implications were staggering. An entire species of highly intelligent beings, dismissed as mindless predators for centuries. How much knowledge had been lost? How many potential partnerships had been destroyed by fear and misunderstanding? Vex Thor arrived that afternoon with a delegation from the Galactic Council. The ambassador looked older than he had 3 weeks ago, as if the weight of rewritten history had aged him. But there was also something lighter in his bearing, as if a long-held burden had been lifted. "Dr. Purrs, Emma," he greeted them formally. "I bring news from the council." After extensive deliberation, the Draconis mortalis have been granted full diplomatic status as a sapient species. Their persecution is now classified as a historical tragedy, and reparations protocols are being discussed. Emma looked up from where she was braiding flowers into a small chain. "Does that mean Ember is important now?" "Ember has always been important," Vex Thor replied kindly. "But yes, now the galaxy recognizes that importance. We have wronged his species greatly. It will take time to make amends." Ember had been listening to the conversation. Now he made a series of sounds, low rumbles and higher chirps, accompanied by specific body movements. Dr. Purrs's translator attempted to process them but could only provide partial meaning. "He's saying something about others," Dr. Purrs interpreted. "Others like him. Coming here." As if summoned by the mention, an alert chimed from the settlement. Captain Bennett's voice came through the communicator. "Nathan, we have multiple contacts. 7 Draconis mortalis, approaching from different directions, all maintaining peaceful distance and making no aggressive moves." Dr. Purrs and Vex Thor exchanged glances. This was unprecedented. A gathering of dragons. Something never recorded in any database. Ember's purr deepened, and he stood up carefully, mindful not to disturb Emma. "They're coming to meet Ember," Emma said with the simple certainty of childhood. "They want to see that humans are nice." She was right. Over the next hour, 7 massive dragons arrived at New Terra. They settled at respectful distances from the settlement and from each other. Their scales ranged from Ember's deep black to brilliant reds, blues, and even one with scales that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. They were magnificent and terrifying in their diversity. And they were all watching the settlement with curiosity rather than aggression. Captain Bennett mobilized the contact protocols that Dr. Purrs had developed. Human volunteers, including several children, approached each dragon carefully. The encounters followed Emma's original pattern. No weapons, calm demeanor, genuine friendliness. And one by one, the dragons responded. Purrs echoed across the landscape. Massive heads lowered to allow gentle touches. The galaxy's most feared predators revealed themselves to be social creatures starving for connection. Emma appointed herself the official greeter. She visited each dragon with Ember at her side, introducing them to human culture. She brought them flowers, showed them pictures, read them stories. The dragons listened with rapt attention, their golden and amber and ruby eyes following every word. Dr. Purrs documented everything, his excitement growing with each observation. The dragons were communicating with each other through methods humans were just beginning to understand. They were sharing information about their experiences with humans, establishing social hierarchies, and most incredibly, making plans. "They want to learn our language, Doctor," Purrs reported to the council. "They want to participate in galactic society. They've been isolated for so long, and now they're seeing a path to connection." Over the following days, New Terra became a diplomatic hub unlike any in galactic history. Dragons and aliens and humans gathered together, working through centuries of fear and misunderstanding. It was not always smooth. Some delegates could not overcome their terror. Some dragons were wary of species that had attacked them in the past. But progress was made. Slowly, carefully, painfully, at times, but undeniably real. The ceremony took place 1 month after Emma's first kiss. The Galactic Council had arranged a formal recognition event, acknowledging the Draconis Mortalis as full members of the galactic community. Representatives from 200 species attended, along with 12 dragons who had agreed to serve as the first ambassadors for their kind. Emma was given a medal, though she was more interested in the cookies at the reception afterward. Captain Bennett received commendations for her handling of the situation. Dr. Purrs was offered positions at a dozen research institutes, but the real moment came when Emma stood before the gathered assembly, Ember at her side, and was asked to speak. She was nervous, fidgeting with her dress and looking very small beside the massive dragon. Dr. Purrs gave her an encouraging nod. "I don't really understand why everyone is making such a big deal," Emma said in her clear child's voice. "I just saw someone who looked lonely and wanted to be friends. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Be nice to people?" The simplicity of her words struck deep. Beings who had spent centuries analyzing, strategizing, and fearing the dragons were faced with the pure truth from a 7-year-old. Kindness matters. Compassion matters. Seeing the being instead of the monster matters. Ember lowered his head and gently nuzzled Emma, producing a purr that resonated through the ceremony hall. Several delegates were openly crying. Vex Thor had to pause the proceedings to compose himself. The message that went out to the galaxy that day was simple. The Draconis Mortalis were no longer to be feared or avoided. They were to be approached with respect and openness, and humans, with their unique Deathworld perspective and emotional courage, would facilitate the first contacts. Within months, dragons began appearing in systems they had never been seen before. Not invading, but visiting. They were curious about the galactic community that had feared them for so long. And everywhere they went, human contact specialists helped bridge the gap, teaching other species Emma's method. Approach with kindness, speak with respect, show genuine care. Not every contact went perfectly. Some species needed time to overcome their fear. Some dragons bore deep scars from past encounters and were slow to trust. But the process had begun, and it could not be stopped. A year after Emma kissed Ember, the first dragon enrolled in a galactic university. 2 years later, a dragon served on a colony defense force, protecting the very species that once fled from his kind. 5 years later, a dragon diplomat helped negotiate peace between 2 warring species, her unique perspective providing insights that others had missed. And through it all, Emma grew up with Ember as her closest friend. She learned to understand dragon communication. Ember learned to read human books. They taught each other, challenged each other, and showed the galaxy that the greatest differences could be bridged by the simplest things: patience, kindness, and love. Dr. Purrs often reflected on that first day, when his daughter walked across scorched earth to kiss a monster. He had been terrified. He had been certain he was about to lose his child. Instead, Emma had given the galaxy a gift beyond measure. She had shown them that monsters are only monsters until someone sees them as friends. That fear creates barriers, but love builds bridges. That sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe is not weapons or technology or military might. Sometimes, the most powerful force is a child's pure heart, offering friendship to someone everyone else has given up on. The galaxy learned that lesson well, and they never forgot the 7-year-old girl who taught an ancient predator what it meant to be loved, and in doing so, changed the course of galactic history forever. On New Terra, as the sun set over the agricultural fields, Emma sat reading a new book to Ember. Around them, other dragons had gathered, along with human children who were learning dragon communication. It was a peaceful scene, impossible just a year ago, now part of their daily routine, and they all lived happily ever after. Emma finished the story, closing the book. Ember's purr deepened in satisfaction. He made a complex series of sounds that Dr. Purrs's translator now partially understood. "What did he say?" Emma asked her father. Dr. Purrs smiled. He said, "Just like us." Emma hugged Ember's massive leg, barely able to wrap her arms partway around. "Just like us," she agreed. And in the fading light, surrounded by friends both human and dragon, that impossible dream became simply life. The new normal. The future the galaxy had never dared to imagine, all because one little girl decided to be brave enough to be kind.